Let's see. Post MSI patch. MSI has put out really good games so far with Kalusta, and when TF am I gonna get a win? Looking pretty bad though.
Less than 3.
Meta's looking pretty good overall. Main gaps have been some more AP junglers and a few more assassins, though a lot of the HP midlane has made this a bit difficult. And we didn't want to have too many Corkis and Tristanas. We've been a bit buff heavy in the recent patches, so we're pulling it back a bit here with some more nerfs. Systems. We initially made mass stacking, hunting guys plus hunting guys, possible as a fun joke build, or rather passed on fixing it. But with bloodletters becoming a real item, it ended up being a lot more powerful than intended. It's resulting in a lot of champions being able to index into a lot more HP than it's normal. So I guess it's like mainly Aurora at MSI. I mean, there's like other champions that can do it, like Cho and Galio and stuff like that, yeah? We're removing the interaction as a result in line with other epics, even though it's fun. We're also looking... Okay, so first of all, regarding this, I don't think the mass stacking build is that good. It's mainly just like Chovy builds it at MSI, which is like very MSI specific or pro play specific, and then people are maybe copying it in solo queue. The reason why I like it but also hate it that they're removing it is I like it because I just don't think this should be a real thing. And again, as much as it's a fun item build, I kind of see Riot's point of view. There's just too much HP on these champions. But the reason why I hate it is because I feel like itemization is really, really stale. And as much as it's a fun build, it maybe does suck at the end of the day to remove it because it's just very hard to be innovative when it comes to Deek's item system right now. We're also looking at some buffs down the performing sustained damage items like Borg, Kraken, and PD. We're preemptively nerfing... Okay, first of all, this is, again, very skeptical. I like it because I do think that itemization is very stale, especially ADC. I think ADCs have the most stale itemization out of any class. The reason why I hate it is because some champions are just so obnoxious via on-hit items. Kind of reminds me of like on-hit Vayne, on-hit TF, even on-hit Akshan. There's like other champions. I feel like champions can get obnoxious really fast with on-hit items. And that's why I often prefer crit over on-hit on a lot of these champions. But I think PD, obviously PD is not that much of an on-hit item. PD is the weakest attack speed item in the game. I think Navori and Rapid are just a lot better. So I'm glad Riot is buffing PD. But at the same time, I think Riot needs to somehow find a way to make attack speed items feel more rewarding. I don't know why, but attack speed just feels so bad to purchase as a stat. Like it is just such a cosmetic stat because you buy Yuntal and then you just buy Infinity LDR on so many champions. I don't know what it is, but like attack speed is just a joke in the league item system. And just in general, like, I don't know. And then Borg and Kraken. So Borg and Kraken, I don't know what they're gonna do with these items. The problem with these items is that Riot is kind of balancing them between melees and ranged really hard. So Borg ends up being really bad on range champions, but decent on melee champions, right? So I'm assuming they're gonna buff it for ranged, but I think Borg as an item on range champion does present a lot of issues where one champion, like, because Borg is just, if it's strong or ranged, it's just such a powerful item to rush because it gives you like sustain and everything. And it makes you deal with a lot of this, just like in general, with a lot of tanky champs very easily. Same goes for Kraken. Like Kraken used to be an AD item identity-wise, but then Riot, I remember post-Mythic era, like they kind of made Kraken more of a melee item. From my memory, like Kraken did way more on like Belvet and Mastery type of champions. In general, again, I think ADC item system is in the worst space out of any role. And ADC item system honestly needs like either some item set or maybe like another item rework system, as sad as it sounds, because ADCs have gotten a lot of item reworks compared to other classes. But I just think it's just in a really bad place right now. And I think we lack items on ADC. Like, you can't just be choosing only to rush Yuntal, or when it comes to on-hit, there's just no item really to build. It's just weird. It's just weird. Like, and maybe they should add items that are separate from range to melee. Like, maybe they should just make an on-hit item for melees only and then one for range only. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas. We're preemptively nerfing Yasuo. He's a bit stronger than Yon. For regular players, and we're buffing Borg. So I guess this insinuates, or whatever the word is, that Bork will actually be buffed for melee. So this is gonna also be an Aurelia buff. But anyway, yeah, you know how I feel. I think Yasuo is extremely underpowered. Every high elo player thinks that the champion is a joke, but it is true that Yasuo is balanced around low elo players, where Yasuo is actually not underpowered that much there. He's like relatively balanced in that elo. It's just that in high elo specifically, Yasuo is just very terrible. I would like Yasuo to become a high elo champion again. It never makes sense to me that a champion that is supposed to be kind of high skill cap is essentially skewed towards low elo. Like, to me, it's weird. Yasuo, to me, Riot should find a way to skew him more towards high elo. Pretty much is what I'm trying to say, and nerf him for regular players. Probably the way to do that is by nerfing Windwall, I would assume, because Windwall just does nothing in high elo. Like, it's only good against ADC class for the most part. Some ADCs don't even care that much about Windwall. Everyone plays around Windwall too much. It's eating too much of Yasuo's power budget, and then the rest of the kit suffers because of that, I feel like. We've nerfed Raw a decent amount for non-core users at the cost of its previous core users. We're splitting the difference back, but in a way that benefits its old core users, typical mana-oriented battle mages. So I think the way this reads is they're gonna probably give Raw more mana per level. So it's gonna benefit like Kassadin and Ryze and a little bit more. I mean, I just think, again, I said it like a billion times, Riot needs to buff Raw and nerf Catalyst. Like, Catalyst is like the biggest problem. We're being careful with the Guardian adjustment that makes it slightly better for enchanters, but not better for tanks. Okay, cool. Support and jungle. We've heard a lot of feedback about the strength of both the jungle and support roles. In particular, the gap between melees and range supports have grown a lot, with a few exceptions like Nico support. We didn't want to change the meta a lot during MSI, but now over the coming patches, we want to gradually take power out of melee supports and some of the junglers. We don't want to add extra power to the weaker champions in the role and make the roles any stronger. This isn't all the changes that we want to make for the roles, but just a general strategy that we'll employ over the course of new patches. Okay. Sounds good, but at the same time, I don't know if it's gonna do a lot. First of all, for supports, I think the mage supports are absolutely a joke, and I think enchanter supports are extremely overpowered for vast majority of player base. Obviously, I get why Riot doesn't want Zazak to be that strong, but the problem I think lies in the mage support item. Like, Zazak is a joke. That item is so bad. Yeah, melee supports, range supports, okay, that's kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. High elo players are obviously a bit tired that melee supports are perma-laning mid lane and perma-roaming and support being this strong. Same for jungle. But at the same time, I think right now, if Riot next patch nerfs every melee support to the ground and only range supports are good, I think support will still be an overpowered role. Because people are sleeping on enchanters anyway. The meta would just shift and there's gonna be like a bit less like roaming and engage, but they're just gonna pick more scaling and protect the ADC type of team comps with like Lulu, Millia, blah blah blah. So I don't think... I don't think melee supports necessarily being nerfed is going to make support a whole lot weaker. Now for jungle, I mean, yeah, they say that they don't want to make the jungle role weaker, champions in the role, so they just want to nerf individual champions, if I understand correctly, which it's not going to make jungle that much weaker. I think jungle will always find champions that are going to be good. The jungle item is way too good. We're also nerfing Yumi as she's pushing frustration, especially in China. She's the most banned support in Emerald Plus. She doesn't need to be that powerful to achieve her goals. Okay, fair enough. Like, this is a China-specific nerf. I think this is fine. Klat. Yeah, I already commented on Klat. The TLDR is that he's gonna lose part of the identity, which is that he's gonna be having grievous wounds on Q, but everything else kind of stays very similar. Klat overall will be, I think, slightly better champion, but in a way very similar, where I feel like it's just a balance reshape, but the kit itself is going to functionally kind of play out the same. I think his identity is going to be mostly the same, and he's going to have slightly better numbers and everything. So I think it's a slight buff for Klat. But I think overall the champ will be the same over a long period of time. Throughout the course of dev, we investigated increasing remounting frequency in an effort to give him more effective health, but ended up moving away from it. Okay, that's cool. So looking at the patch notes themselves, champion buffs, first of all, Azir. This is because Azir holds an extremely low win rate for vast majority of player base. MSI is over, they're gonna rebuff Azir. This is very obvious. By rebuffing Azir, this is gonna mean that he's gonna become even more present in pro play, and probably like basically in summer split, you're gonna see a lot of Azirs in a lot of regions more and more, because I assume they're probably gonna buff him more than once. Darius buff, I think Darius is slightly underpowered, but at the same time, Darius benefits from the fact that he's kind of popular, so Riot always buffs him pretty quick in case he's kind of weak. He doesn't get left alone weak for that long, so I think, personally, I feel like the Darius buff is maybe a bit too early, but it is what it is. Fizz, sure. Ziggs, sure. This is a good champ to buff. Ziggs, I think, is kind of weak. I like the buff. Champion nerf. So here's the interesting part. So first of all, Braum. So they talk about nerfing melee supports, but the only champion on this list is Braum. Is Braum OP? Yes. Do people realize Braum is OP? No. Is Braum a high ban rate champion like Taric, even though the win rate is insanely high? No. People just don't really realize that Braum is OP. So should we really be nerfing Braum when the melee support problem, I think, mostly lies in champions like Ral and Loana and Alistar? I don't know. Weird approach in my opinion, but Braum is OP. Lee Sin, champion nerf Lee Sin. I assume this is China and Korea pushing the nerf more so than EU and NA. But yeah, he gained a lot of win rate with the latest buff, which was like 1 second of E. So makes sense. Pantheon. So here I'm hoping it's Pantheon jungle. Pantheon top lane is totally fine. I never see it being played. I don't think it's an issue anywhere. This should just be a Pantheon jungle nerf. Pantheon jungle has been too good for way too long. I think Riot is nerfing it a bit late already, but yeah, nerf it. Riven. So we won. The team of OTP single-handedly nerf Riven. No, that's obviously Kappa because Riot locks in the patch notes days before that post even happened. So obviously not, but yeah, Riven is OP. That doesn't need an explanation. Sat. So this is being nerfed because of low elo players. Not much to say. It's a low elo player nerf. It's the same reason why Riot nerfed Yorick and Mordekaiser many months ago. Twisted Fate. So here I'm actually kind of happy that Riot is nerfing TF, because it is one of the statistically performant best mid laners in solo queue. Even though he's sucking at MSI, I actually really like that they're going through with this nerf, and yeah, Twisted Fate should probably be nerfed. Yasuo, yeah, don't like it. Yumi, okay. Zoe, very surprised to see Zoe. I thought Riot would actually leave her alone. I thought the nerf would happen earlier, and because the nerf didn't happen, I thought Riot wouldn't actually nerf the champion. But yeah, Zoe is like, again, a China problem. She's very good in China solo queue, and also like just in general, very high win rate mid laner in like Diamond Master. Clad rework, Blade Kraken PD, Roa, okay, cool. And then Unsealed Spellbook Smite. Really happy to see that. I was actually gonna mention this if it wasn't in the patch notes. Unsealed Spellbook is disgusting, especially in pro play and in high elo. People are just going Unsealed Spellbooks, stacking smites, and you have no control over objectives. It is disgusting. It is just, I don't know. The Keystone itself is just overbuffed. Obviously, this is gonna be another TF small nerf. I actually think the Keystone itself is still too strong, even if you just nerf the smite portion. I actually think it is too strong on its users regardless, but step into the right direction. Now here are all the list of changes. I don't think this patch is like nearly enough. This is like ChatGPT patch notes. I think the game is still very stale, and objectives are all the same, and the whole game is going to be played in a very similar way, especially like when it comes to mid lane and high elo. This will barely move the meta at all. So I made a list of 5 champions I would nerf, 5 champions I would buff, and 2 things I would change if I was Riot. So I'll quickly explain my thoughts. First of all, nerf list. I'll go, I think, Kayle for top lane. Kayle should be nerfed. This champion holds way too high of a win rate for vast majority of player base. Mundo jungle is somehow not on this list. I think Mundo needs to be nerfed, and more specifically in jungle. Jungle Mundo is way too overpowered. Syndra should, I think, also be nerfed. It is a high elo problem only, especially EU and NA problem more so than Korea and China. But I think Syndra is way too OP. For ADC, it was a hard time choosing which champion I would nerf, but I went with Zari. I think Zari is kind of OP. I mean, it's just a matter of time till people realize it. And then for support, Bart. Bart is way too OP. 5 Moon Spit last the patch for MSI was just way too big. Let's just nerf this. Let's revert that buff, please. Then I went for the buffs. Which champion would Nemesis buff? I was very careful in selecting which ones I would choose. For top lane, I decided Gragas. I think the champ's been way too weak for way too long. Skarner is what I chose for jungle. Over nerf by pro play. I get that Skarner is pro play specific champion. People get annoyed by it very much, but right now it's too weak in my opinion. Even a small buff will not make him any good anyway. For mid lane, I chose Yon. It's kind of hard to choose which mid lane champ to buff, but I think Yon is what I would choose to buff, but then Bork is being buffed here anyway, so whatever. ADC, I went with Kalista. I think it's basically one of the worst champions in the game. And then for supports, I actually don't think there's a support in the game that needs a buff. I actually thought mid supports in general need to be buffed via item. For systemic changes, two things that I think Riot should do. One is nerf CC across all board. I think crowd control is way too strong, considering there's almost no tools to combat crowd control. Simultaneously, I would also by nerfing crowd control, I would remove tenacity from Starak, for example. I don't think it has a place in League, because why would Starak classes get tenacity, but other classes not? And then ADC itemization rework. I already said this again, but ADC items need the most work out of any class right now. Those are my thoughts. Does it make sense melee champs get tenacity? Of course it makes sense when you put it that way. But Starak is not an item that every class of melee champions can buy, right? It is just not. And Starak in general is probably just slightly too strong. Anyway. I think crowd control is just too strong. I don't know. It's too strong. I would nerf CC by at least 10% across the board. Like, it's just too strong. Like, it's just... Crowd control being this strong makes so many instances where you can't outplay people 1v2, 1v3 because crowd control. Honestly, crowd control is not even too strong on a class. It's just too strong in every champion. There's almost no champion that has weak crowd control anymore these days. Like, you know what's a weak crowd control in my opinion? Maybe a hot take, but a weak crowd control is like Yasuo Q3 or Yone Q3. That's like a pretty weak crowd control, but maybe it doesn't matter that it's weak because the spells do other things, right? But take a look at like Jhin W, random ability. Like at rank 5, Jhin W snares you for 50 years. Or, I don't know, Ari Charm. Even though it got nerfed like twice, the spell still... It's just in late game, if you get CC'd for even 1.5 seconds, you die instantly. You just die. TF gold card? Well, the thing is, like, TF gold card, it's understandable why it's strong, because it's the only thing the champ has in the kit. It's not that Ari has mobility, Ari has good wave gear, Ari has damage. TF doesn't have these things nearly as much, so I think it's more justifiable that TF's strongest point is the crowd control, you know? But like, I don't know, like a champion like Lissandra, her strength should be crowd control, because that's what the kit is about, right? But when you play against Lissandra, do you feel more CC'd than when you play against Ari? No, you don't. Ari's crowd control unironically feels stronger, you know?